news. Jyn Erso and her friends finally join Cassian and his friends. Matt and Lee discuss.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rapid Reactions. The spoilers for the Rogue One box landed literally the night before I flew out for vacation, so I know we're quite late on this by the time I'm done editing. Oh well. All it means is that we've actually had a chance to, try these units out a little bit on the table, and I actually got to see our guest, as always, Mr. Lee, in person. Hello, Lee.
Hello.
So we've gotten to talk about these guys a little bit already. So if we're too samey in our thoughts, maybe that's why we're succumbing to the groupthink. But yeah, should we dive right in, Lee? This is a very exciting box.
Absolutely.
I like it. Alrighty. So I've talked a lot. Do you want to kick us off? What catches your eye about Jyn's unit card? I guess first of all, we already knew this from the Adepticon, but she is an 8/3.
I think the most interesting thing about her is her fancy, like the ability to essentially negate force costs when you're out of force but still have momentum. I think is a very interesting new thing that we haven't seen with Rebels. Certainly spending momentum to do things is a thing that the Rebels have done in the past, and I like that with people like Han, for instance, you can play around with how you use momentum. But Jyn's just a different way of doing it. I don't think it's as useful as I think some people initially read it as. Is like, oh great, I'm never going to have to spend force again, because you can only use it when she's tapped out. But it still gives you an avenue when you get to the bottom of that force pool, and I think that's really that's different.
You bring up a really good point there, because I know some people initially kind of read it differently than how it actually works. So just to be clear, if you've got like Kanan, who is injured, trying to do a force push, if you have 3 force, you have to spend that 3 force rather than 1 momentum. You can't say, oh, I'm going to spend 1 momentum and then use 3 force on 3 different abilities later on. So sometimes it's going to feel really good, sometimes it's not going to feel as good. I don't know how often this is actually going to be game breaking, but it could be really useful. I'm thinking even like a really late game, oh, I just drew my Rebel Commandos. They're injured, or maybe double injured, because that's what happens to Rebel Commandos. I only have 1 or 2 force left, and it costs 2 or 3. Okay, I will spend a momentum instead so I can dash focus, maybe with Cassian's Sharpshooter. So I think, yeah, that's definitely the most unique ability on Jyn's card. But she has some other stuff too, right? She's got the ability to give a 5 dice attack to a supporting unit, which is not something Rebels often do. You know, that's maybe more of an Empire or a Separatist thing. So that's really cool. And she's got the, Mando Boosh ability for adding dice and melee. And then when she attacks, and critically, this is any attack, she can do a dash. Now, this is a reactive, but she can do it twice. She's not super tanky, though. And if she ever gets wounded, this is going to get really expensive. But if she can start in range of stuff, she can shoot, dash, and then you still have an action left to advance or something. Who knows?
I do find that to be quite interesting because I don't really think of Rebels as a particularly slow faction in the first place.
No.
Generally, I feel quite comfortable with no, I'm going to be able to put whatever Rebel I want anywhere on the board. So the addition of a very fast primary is cool. You're not going to turn it down, but it's already in a faction where I already feel like plenty of movement chicanery is available. But worth mentioning.
Counterpoint, I do think maybe Jyn's main competitor, just because of the tag synergy stuff, is probably Charming Leia, because Leia's also a spy. But Leia can actually be kind of slow if you're trying to just focus, shoot. Of course, Leia can also be very fast, but then you're making compromises. Whereas Jyn can be fast in her own right. And she can heal as well. Again, that's just kind of niche. She might be dead before it matters, or it might really pop off. Just overall, looking at Jyn's card, for as far as abilities go, I see a lot of what-if scenarios of what if this happens? This would be really good. But I'm not sure how consistent she's going to be. Her first activation, you're probably not shooting things twice. You're probably not getting a shot off on the tactic. It's probably a dash, unless maybe you advance her up with Han or something like that. In the mid-game, if you start in range of stuff, the stars might align and you could have great turns. The momentum thing could save your butt. The heal thing could come in clutch. A whole bunch of things that could be great. I'm not sure how often they will be great.
I did toy with the idea that like maybe she's an incredible tank because she's got so many heals there, and I was just like, wait a second, no, she's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, let's look at her. Let's look at her cards, her stances, because the defense is the same on both. She has clone trooper expertise with dashes, which is pretty good. If if you've got Luke around, then you could potentially be immune pin a lot. If someone shoots you and pins you, you can just dash it off right away, which is fine, which helps, keeps her mobile. She's only range 4, which again makes setting up the double shot a little bit harder. But her expertise offensively is very crit focused. So that is like set up for those 5 dice attacks where you're trying to ping 2, maybe even 3 crits through.
Yeah, I absolutely feel that it feels like a lot of her expertise table is built around that idea of like really getting value out of those 5 dice where, historically with other units it's like I get my 5 dice attack, but if you have a bad a bad expertise table that doesn't get you those crits, it can often feel like you'll be lucky to get a hit through, if that. And with such a crit heavy table, like you'll probably get 1 or 2 results, and hey, I know I've said it so many times, like getting a push on 1, getting the potential of a push pin on 2.
Yeah, and resisting arrest or double shove on 2 as well. So I think, resisting arrest really jumps out to me as the one that I will probably be in the most, just because of that, how explosive it can be out of the gate. But aggravated assault is also kind of interesting if you want to double tap the same person, because maybe you can get 2 down the tree, get an expose on them, and then your combat action, you attack them again to attack them when they're exposed. And that's pretty great. Yeah. For a unit that wants to make 5 dice attacks, you can't ask for better expertise, I would say.
Absolutely. I did also want to mention, when you were mentioning the clone defensive expertise on her, no crit mitigation for her.
Nope. She's Rex that can dash. She's got 9 health, and and that's not bad necessarily. And if someone doesn't one-shot her, she could potentially heal up slowly with the heals if your opponent's gaining momentum. In Mission Critical, that will be great. But let's move on, because I think every unit that we're going to do successively is going to get more and more exciting. So let's save some time here for the closer to the end. But Bodhi Rook, so he is a 3, which we kind of figured out based on Baze Chirrut being a 5. Bodhi is hot take, maybe not a hot take. I think he's probably the best 3-cost support in the game, like hands down. Secondary. Oh, I always do that. 3-cost secondary in the game, hands down. Because he can move a friend, he can double dash himself. He's got that Kanan wording where it's like, dash someone. Okay, now was that person a spy? If so, you get a dash, and he's a spy. I just need an open line. Let's talk about this ability. Because this is one I saw a lot of hype about, and it can be great, for sure. I've actually had a game with Bodhi where he got 3 expertise in one roll, which is like a 5%, 2%. It's a really low chance, but it felt great, of course. It's going to be harder to line up than it seems on paper, I think, because you have to already control the objective, right? Which means if you draw him the very first turn of a struggle, you control no objectives. If someone's dived your back point, it's, they're contesting. If you can't shove them away, not helping. Or if, let's say it's shifting, he's on the right side, the left side home objective lit up. The midline might already have enemies contesting. So when it works, it'll be great. It's not always going to work.
Which is fine. I think classically, like, the comparator that I have is Grand Inquisitor's Secrets Uncovered, where you might never use this ability in a game, and I think it's still worth money. If only because, like, as the opponent on the other side of the table, it means that you really can't leave situations where it's like, oh, Bodhi might come up, Bodhi is sitting on a point, and my opponent is not that far away. How many games have we had where it's like, I think realistically I can swing 3 objective points. Maybe I also get a wound, so that's 4, and I need 5 to take the struggle, right? and now you have someone who's essentially a potential accelerator. And as an opponent across the table, you can't really just ignore that.
Yeah.
So that's it's very spicy.
It's still a very
spicy.
good ability because it's free, right? You're either making your opponent give up a momentum or you're threatening one, maybe two momentum. I think someone ran the numbers. I think it's like 42% you blank out, 42% you get one, and then the other 16% is two or three, right? So
Yeah.
depending on game state, maybe your opponent will spend, maybe not. But obviously the ceiling's very high and the cost is very low. But the really, really great thing here,
Who cares about that?
who cares about all that? Steadfast Bubble, range 3 Steadfast Bubble. Now, look, it's okay. I said he's probably the best 3-cost secondary in the game. That might not be true because C3PO exists now. And range 5 Steadfast Bubble is crazy, but he's so niche.
Yes.
Because you kind of have to take him with
Leia.
Leia.
Or Endor.
Versus Bodhi just gives it to rebels natively. And spies also get immunity to expose. That's cool too. But I love the Steadfast, man. The Steadfast. Oh, yes.
It's incredible, and I feel like I do think, and this is a really nice push-pull of it, like, you kind of need to keep Bodhi in that Bo-Katan-ish range of, like, where she also wants to be within a particular range of people who are contesting objectives. So maybe you have to spend a Han tactic on him to get him into position or something, just to keep him where he needs to be. But it's so totally worth it. I think Steadfast is just, like, as we've talked about before, one of those abilities where, as nice as it is to, like, have something that gets you an extra point, you know what's also great? Just persistently not losing a point because you literally have opponents that can't shove you off a point. Like, they only have one push in their tree, and they cannot do enough to get you out of there. And it's like, oh, this is huge.
Yes. Well, speaking of Steadfast, Bodhi, he doesn't like to see Steadfast because he only gets one shove. But if they're not
True.
Steadfast, he gets the shove on one, and he has a fine attack profile. Again, he's a 3. Would I rather have him attacking or Grief or Storm Sergeant or Pawns? What's the new guy? Phil?
Yeah.
I think Bodhi holds his own for the thing.
Yeah.
He's not tanky. He really has clone defense. He's a 5/4 middling expertise. So like he could go down quick, and then his kit will be very expensive. But what can you ask for? You know?
Yeah, this is very, very reasonable, and it's on a range 5 gun. Like, Bodhi's a great person. I think that the really interesting push-pull I have when I look at Bodhi is, like, do I want him up in the front giving steadfast everyone? That's amazing. Or do I have him camped in the back with a range 5 gun, sitting on an objective that's hard for my opponent to take? Like, both of these are fine, which is neat.
Shall we move on to the real headliners?
The gems.
The gems.
Let's go.
So we saw Baze Chirrut's card. It was like a handout prize thing at participation prize at Worlds at Adepticon. And just based off of that, I was hyped. I was absolutely hyped for this unit. Because partly I love Cassian. I think Cassian's awesome. And obviously a very cool Star Wars character too. But even just in Shatterpoint terms, he is amazing, and he does have some weaknesses. Baze Chirrut help that a lot. And he's a 9 cost. They're a 5. They work great together. But yeah, the most important thing is they bring force regen, so they make that 2 force from Cassian hurt a lot less. Of course, in other lists without Cassian, they make 6 feel more like 7, etc., etc. They'll always have force for their active ability. So I like their movement profile more than someone like Han and Chewie. And they have this very, very cool Guardian of the Wills ability.
I do just want to very quickly mention that you missed a chance to say they make 10 force feel like 100.
Oh! Wow.
And now the moment's come. Yes, no, I think Baze and Chirrut are incredible. I really like seeing any sort of force regen on a support. And it scales up, which is like, as the game goes on, when abilities start to get more expensive and maybe just a 1 force regen isn't that helpful, suddenly you've got a unit that can very potentially get 2. I already think that, especially with Cassian, when you want to Shatterpoint on a support unit, you've got a great support unit here. A lot of Cassian's Shatterpoint ability is like if they have gotten access to a focus, suddenly that impact and sharpshooter is so much more valuable than hey, look, a unit that very easily focuses.
Pretty much every Cassian list I build these days will probably have like Rebel Commandos and Baze Chirrut in them. At least one, but if you've got both, you've got two options for potential 10 dice attacks where you're making two of them, and that's really cool. We'll look at the stances in a moment, but obviously I am one with the Force is more of a shooting stance, versus the Forces with me is more of a melee stance. I do think there might be some feels bad moments where it's like, oh man, I just the way everything has set up, I want to flip into this stance, but I don't want to end in it. Oh darn. Maybe I don't like these guys so much. But then when you think about it, most supports don't even have that option. You've got one stance and you're stuck with it. And if a support had either of these stances as just the one you had to use, you'd still be pretty happy with it. Now, it's not Han and Chewie level. If we start by looking at, say, the Forces with me, it's not doing amazing damage, but it's not shabby. They're not great at double shoving. Same with I Am One with the Force. They're not great at double shoving. But for a unit that's bringing as much to the table as they are, I think this is a very, very acceptable stances. Two stances, and if you get caught shooting in the melee stance or you're meleeing in the shooting stance, it's not that bad.
It really isn't. And the other thing I wanted to mention with Guardian of the Wills is that unlike some other characters, you get access to your sharpshooter or to your native impact just by being in that stance. You don't have to flip into it to get your sharpshooter. You don't have to focus to, well, you need to focus to get the benefit of those things. But it's entirely fair just to be like, I'm just going to stand still, focus, and shoot. I'm going to keep my stance, or I'm going to stand still, focus, and punch. Either of these are perfectly fine, and you still get the benefit of, like, the impact one that you would have out of that. So, like, it's still very solid.
That's a really great point, and you don't even have to stand still because you'll regen your force, and you could spend it then to move. I think most of the time I'm probably going to start in I Am One with the Force and then try to flip into Forces with me just so I can have Steadfast there early. But one of the great things is if you're running Bodhi and you do something like that, you know, maybe they activate early, they go up, they get Steadfast. By the time they activate again, Bodhi is hopefully upfield, so now even though they flip back into I Am One with the Force, they might still have Steadfast from Bodhi, which is pretty handy. And they get crit mitigation in that stance, which we know from Dark Troopers, crit mitigation on support, pretty good. They don't have Dark Trooper level expertise. They can still die, of course, but 9 health, they're going to be decently durable. Much more durable than Rebels are used to with something like Rebel Commandos. But maybe not quite to Pathfinder level of durability.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of he's praying for the door to open?
I think it's cute. I think it's kind of like Han's... I think it's Keep a Little Optimism is the name of the one where you spend a force, get a momentum when they wound you and they have more momentum. We keep bringing up Han, and I'm kind of sad because neither of us is actually going to showcase a list with Han later, but there's so many fun tricks you can do with Han in this box. So definitely a really good pairing.
I know that some people looked at that ability and they were like, this thing's amazing, I'm going to be using every turn. Practically speaking, I don't see it. But it's a nice thing to have in your back pocket. So that's why I was very much in agreement when you were like, it's cute. Yeah,
I think this will win games if and when your opponent potentially forgets about it. Yeah. And I might forget about it. You know, in our, as you know, in our GT in April, I played 7 straight games with Phil's clones and forgot they had the spend 1 force to add 2 dice when attacking a primary unit. I might do that with these guys. I might completely forget about it and then realize, oh shoot, I missed some opportunities. So I think these guys are going to be really good, but I think there's also going to be levels of like really learning how to use them with that flipping stances mainly, but also keeping an eye out for opportunities for the door to open. I spoiled the list a little. No one brought a Han list. What did you bring for us today, Lee?
I wanted to try to be a little more creative this time around. So sticking with the mandate that I want to try, like you just bought the Jyn box, congratulations, let's try to get the most use out of it. My first proposed list is the Jyn box as it appears, so that's Jyn, Bodhi, Baze Chirrut, and then Fulcrum, Ezra, and Commandos.
Ooh, Fulcrum.
I think so. Fulcrum Ahsoka is not commonly available to most people, but
September, I think.
um,
I think we now actually have a date. It's coming early September, so
yeah,
not that long of a wait.
in the games that I've had with Fulcrum Ahsoka, I find that one of the things that kind of sticks is that she is a very expensive character to run, and the trade off is the hope that like, oh, maybe I'll be able to like get a wound, get force back, and like sort of like trip the engine that way. But she costs a lot to get to that point, and I think that on paper, I really like the idea that with Jin, it enables a line of play where, hey, I only have two force, and I need both of those force just to get Ahsoka where I need to go. Because like if you have to pay for her second swing and to get where she needs to go, you can very quickly find yourself out of force. And so I think yeah, Jin might be the answer there, where you could put yourself in a position where, okay, look, I spend what force I have to get her where I need to go, and now that I'm basically bankrupt on force or too low on force to trip or double swing, now Jin sort of enables that. So yeah, I think that's one thing that I am not in love with that list is that there's not a ton of out of activation movement. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
yeah,
mean, Jin can provide some, Bodhi can provide some. No, I like it because
mhm,
Ahsoka Fulcrum, kind of similar to Anakin, they spend a lot of force and can regen
yes,
some force. The problem is maybe you get them late in the deck, and
yeah,
because of everything else, you're down to maybe two force, and you're like, I can't spend for everything I want. Pairing with Jin kind of gets around that problem, and if it means you get a kill you wouldn't otherwise have had, you just get that momentum back. Plus, in the case of Fulcrum herself, you're also regenning a force. So I think that makes a lot of sense as maybe one of the best places to run Fulcrum. I don't know. I think
yeah,
I was going to say she hasn't really taken off yet, but again,
yeah.
hard to knock her for that when she is only sort of released at this point.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, the appeal there was like, hey, how do I make Fulcrum work? And I was like, maybe Jin.
Maybe then.
Yeah. What do you bring?
I, of course, had to go with Cassian because I've been talking up about how Baze and Chirrut just complement him so perfectly. I had some funky
Mm,
lists with Empire because honestly, I think if you just take Cassian plus Baze and Chirrut, the rest of that list can be anything. But
yeah.
in this case, I actually put them in separate squads. So I did Cassian with Lobot and Weequay, Charming Leia with Bodhi and Baze and Chirrut. Of course, you could try to put Lobot under Leia to try to get her that focus more easily. The points just get weird. This
Yeah.
allows me to take a four cost scoundrel support instead of Lando and R2. And I know I was talking up Rebel Commandos with Cassian, but I do like having a scoundrel support under Lobot. The
Yes.
fun thing with this list, as you were mentioning, Baze and Chirrut can just get their abilities as long as they take a focus. Lobot helps with that. Same with
Hmm.
same with Leia. You've got a lot of steadfast between Bodhi,
Yes.
Baze and
Yes.
Chirrut, Weequay. So very sticky list, and then obviously a lot of really good revenge options between Cassian and Leia. You can move Lobot kind of like you could move K2 reactively, and you've got a lot of scoundrels, right? That's something we didn't really talk about. Bodhi
Mhm.
and Baze and Chirrut, both scoundrels, so lots of targets for Lobot.
I find that to be very, very important when you're playing Lobot. I think that something that a lot of players, myself included, have made the mistake of with Lobot is like, oh, Lobot will plug in very well into this rebel list, and then when you activate Lobot, it's like, I only have one person to move and they're wounded, so they're not gonna like get me a point or something. So like, I think if you are going to field Lobot, something I really like about what the Gin box brings and the list that you proposed is plenty of scoundrels. It's
Hmm.
like I think it's kind of this weird thing of like, oh, Jin, this super spy. And it's like, well, actually, the thing they all share is like, yeah, they're all rebels, but more importantly, they're all scoundrels, and there are lots of good scoundrel synergies out there. So,
100%. There's definitely a version of this list where you just pop in Jin instead of Leia, gets you another
yeah,
scoundrel. Maybe then you want
absolutely.
another rebel support, so you go with rebel commandos. Kind of up to you. Um,
Mm.
I don't think you can go wrong, honestly. I think it's really, really solid.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's if there was a conclusion to this box, it's very much like really solid box. I'm certainly more stoked, kind of as you alluded to earlier, that the supports are very exciting. The
Mhm.
secondary is also exciting. The primary is okay, cool. I'm
She's
glad to
fine.
have
I
it.
think
He's
Rebels
fine.
just have a lot of good primaries already
Exactly.
at the 8
Exactly.
cost, so it's a lot more competition for her there. And last thing I'll say, neither of us brought it up because it's a very basic list, but just taking Cassian
Oh
box
yeah.
plus Jin box, perfectly fine list. I'm always on the hunt for good not only 2-box lists, but that's just a very thematic 2-box list. And especially with how popular something like Rogue One or Andor is, I could definitely see players wanting to get into Shatterpoint and kind of saying, hey, I love these characters. I want to just buy these 2 boxes and make a list. And I'm really happy that they work so well together.
Yes, absolutely. That cannot be understated. I really appreciate that for the person who, like I said, like just watched Andor or just wants to get into Shatterpoint on the cheap, getting just the Jyn box and the Cassian box, you're set. That is a super solid squad pairing, and you will do very well just with that alone, which I like. It's a great entry point. It's so many amazing characters, and obviously I love Andor and Rogue One, so very excited.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining Lee on this belated episode. Alrighty, have a good one.
Bye, everyone.